Viewers, what a day it has been. Donald Trump will be the 47th President of the United States of America. To say that he has defied the odds would be a gross understatement. The former President Trump cheated death twice after assassins failed to eliminate him. Trump has defied history, becoming only the second candidate in 132 years to script a comeback after losing the bid for a second term. Trump was battling lawfare that posed an existential threat to his freedom. Trump wasn't just fighting Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party, but an alleged campaign of calumny by the mainstream press, Marxists, and woke establishment types that delighted in labeling him a fascist, racist threat to American democracy. In fact, the Democrat campaign in the United States election mirrored almost word for word all the derogatory labels applied to Prime Minister Narendra Modi by the BJP's rival ecosystem here in India earlier this year. You know what I'm talking about. In the end, both Modi and Trump won. And this is because essentially they were up against candidates, Rahul Gandhi and Kamala Harris, respectively, that weren't perceived by voters to be true to their message. There is no doubt about this. But viewers, since this is Trump's moment, let's stick to why voters saw through Kamala Harris, his opponent. Kamala Harris purported to be the great left liberal hope, but she didn't act like either left or liberal. Harris droned on about the virtues of inclusive democracy and the threat to the liberal order posed by her opponent. But when it came to demonstrating her commitment, she sat silent. This is especially true of when an elected government was overthrown in Bangladesh by an anarchist Islamist cabal with no respect for democracy or pluralism. The Bangladesh example is most pertinent because the installed interim ruler is thought to be an American puppet close to Biden-Harris. At least, Trump took a position on Bangladesh and called out, if nothing else, the rank Hindu phobia that accompanied the regime change there. When it came to India, Biden-Harris both failed New Delhi by refusing to act against Sikh extremists, resolved to upend the mandate of a democratically elected Modi government. Harris preached human rights from every available pulpit, but then didn't intervene forcefully enough to protect them in Gaza, for instance. This despite her base trundling through college campuses calling for sanctions on Israel. What greater hypocrisy than this, viewers? Harris failed to reconcile the views of certain social-backed fellow Democrat LGBTQI rights crusaders when the fundamentals of the Abrahamic traditions consider same-sex liaisons blasphemous. Viewers, think about it. Kamala Harris talked about freedom of speech and expression but had no problems with the rampant cancel culture that sticks to the left ecosystem's censorious underbelly. Harris has no qualms basking in the warm afterglow of the fawning endorsement of the mainstream media that ran a motivated anti-Trump narrative. Never once did Harris pause to ponder the damage that was being done to the cause of democracy by propaganda masquerading as editorial objectivity. On the other bigger issue, in fact the trigger issue, excuse the pun, gun possession, Biden-Harris did not use their time in office to tighten arms control laws. Worse, as the campaign unfolded, Harris tried to pass herself off as a gun owner and to add credibility to her posturing, hung out with George W. Bush's favorite hunting brother-in-arms, Dick Cheney. In the end, perhaps disillusioned, even Harris's base deserted her. It is telling that in not even one blue state has Harris outperformed Biden. So much so that it's Trump who has walked away with minority votes. Not all of them, viewers. but a significant chunk. Enough to do damage. He has the support of more black and Latino men than ever before, Asian Americans and even Muslim Americans. What will really sting Kamala is that fewer women voted for her than her predecessor, Joe Biden. All of this has meant that Trump has gone on to win even the popular vote. We don't have the exact margin, but we have the lead. An achievement that makes Trump look more legitimate than ever before. In the end, it's not that the better candidate has won. It's the candidate that was more upfront, even if being so meant shedding the fig leaf of political correctness, the mainstay of a basic decency in politics. Any which way, Trump will gladly accept the honor, the crown, and he will accept, viewers, the fact that he has created history. Listen in very quickly to what Trump said after his victory and in that address. Very quickly, I want you to get a sense, and then I'll go straight across to Shri Thanedar, who actually is from Michigan, one of those states where, in fact, he was entrusted with the responsibility of bringing in the Democratic vote. He's won. He's done well for himself, but I'm sure he must be feeling a little upset today because Kamala Harris didn't quite make it. Now, Mr. Thanedar, thank you for speaking to me. Look, I am going to be very straight up, as I have been in my introduction. That's my style, and I pull my punches. Let's look at this. Celebrity endorsements, an ecosystem, in fact, an ecosystem. Superstructure that props artificially, we've seen it here in India, is seen to reduce connect with the voter standing in the back of the line. And that's perhaps what has happened, because no one from the inner circle of Kamala Harris, even Kamala Harris, got to hear the other side. That's what is coming through. They cancel the other side. She didn't. Do you think this was a factor that's let her down tonight?
Possibly, yes. Look, the ordinary people, the people who are trying to make ends meet, they're struggling to put food on the table. They're struggling to pay for medicine. They have to make hard choices whether they have to use the money to buy medicine or heat their homes or buy their groceries. $100 isn't bringing in today the amount of grocery that they used to be able to bring 4 years ago. Now, you have Kamala Harris was looked as a little more of an elite candidate, a candidate that was supported by all these celebrities, and she was someone that was saying that she would not do anything different than what President Biden and Harris did. Now, here you are. If you're sitting at home worrying about your finances, if you're sitting at home struggling with the economy, if you're sitting at home and seeing this inflation, and here is a presidential candidate who's saying she's not going to do anything differently, how does that make you feel? Whereas Trump really articulated his three issues. He talked about economy, he talked about the cost, he talked about inflation, the rising interest rates, and then he talked about the migration at the borders, people coming in undocumented. And then he very effectively, sometimes in a comical way, like he said, the people are eating dogs and cats, the immigrants are eating. But he used some terminology, but it stuck in. It stuck in that there is a safety issue in America that is attached to the immigrants migrating. And then he also talked about world events, the war in Ukraine, the war in Gaza. So he said when he was president, we didn't have these kind of wars and instability in the world. Iran now attacking Israel. So he articulated these three issues, and he did that very, very well.
So let me ask you, So let me ask you this question. Should Kamala Harris have just been more authentic? Many said she was a bag of contradictions, and I pointed out some.
Yes, on one end, we saw a Trump that was unhinged. He spoke more closer to how normal people would speak, as opposed to Kamala Harris, who came in more polished. She came in addressing the elites, the college educated.
But one second, Ms. Thanedar, sorry to step in there. When you said that he sounded unhinged and he was speaking like normal people would speak, that's precisely what I'm saying. That comes across as condescending, patronizing, because are you suggesting that the normal people that voted for Trump are also unhinged?
No, they want the problem solved, and they want someone to tell them the way it is. And when Kamala Harris was saying she will do nothing different than Joe Biden, that didn't give people a lot of confidence that she's going to fix the problem that they see today.
Okay, look, I mean, I have to salute you for being absolutely honest tonight. I'm going to come back to you in just a few minutes. I want to open this up and get a couple of other opinions, and maybe those will also help you contextualize your thoughts. So do stay on with me. I want to open this up. I want to bring in Tim Romer, who was the former US ambassador to India. Let's keep Mr. Thanedar on screen there. We have Dr. Anand Ranganathan. We also have from the Bharatiya Janata Party, Mr. A leading light on foreign policy, someone who's actually in charge of the international outreach, Dr. Vijay Chauthaiwale, Department of Foreign Affairs, the BJP, the Cell, and also we're joined by someone who is seen to be a political analyst, perhaps a little more favorable to the Trump point of view, Adel Nazarian. But I want to first begin with you, Mr. Romer, ridiculing opponents, reviling them, rebuking voters, reducing an election to a preachy sermon. Doesn't work. It comes across as elitism, a degree of condescension, comes across as patronizing. I think Mr. Thanedar used that word, elite. Comes across as too privileged to connect. Would you agree?
Well, I am honored to be on the show again and privileged to be with the really distinguished and talented panel that you've assembled here. Look, I ran before I was U.S. ambassador to India. I ran 6 times as a Democratic congressman in the heartland, in Indiana, in a swing district where Democrats and Republicans could win. And messaging is critically important. And listening to our workers who are going through huge dislocation, lots of troubles, transitions in jobs. Some of our workers are going from making $80,000 a year in steel plants to $60,000 a year driving an Uber and doing another job. Democrats have to be able to connect to those people, listen respectfully to those people, and articulate ideas, new ideas that can help them with inflation, housing, the cost of living. I always thought in my campaigns, if I could say something very quickly within 30 seconds to a voter about why I wanted to run and represent them, I thought Kamala Harris could have done this and said, I'm running to make the economy better and address inflation, help you with housing. I'm running to be a change agent. I'm running to change things for the better and make government work for you rather than be ineffective or not there for you. And I'm running for freedom, freedom of reproductive rights, freedom of our democracy to have your votes matter, freedom to breathe clean air and help us with reasonable climate change policy. If you can talk about freedom, change, and jobs, and then they want to ask you more, you're going to win elections. And I think the Democrats need to work on their messaging, their connection, their outreach. And I think we're going to do better in 2026 and 2028. We learn the hard way when we lose elections, and we come back as a result stronger. And Donald Trump has got a lot of challenges ahead of him.
No, that I
Does he
understand. I'll
start?
come to that. We'll break this conversation
Let
up.
me just say one more thing about
Yes.
the Trump presidency. Will he start off thinking he's on a honeymoon or a mandate? And will he try to work in a bipartisan way with Congress on bipartisan immigration reform?
Sure.
Or will he start on some kind of cultural issue and divide people? It's going to be very interesting to see what he does with this massive win. And I congratulate the president for his win, and I accept the results.
Sure. Look, but Harris clearly, Dr. Ranganathan, didn't listen. Why didn't she listen? Did she think she was beyond the people? Did she think that she was insulated from their assessment? Or was she just swept up in this echo chamber, this ecosystem that we all know very familiarly here in India, a large number of our politicians are also swept up by?
What a great question and a topic for debate. First of all, good evening, Rahul, and good evening to my fellow panelists, especially the former ambassador. Thank you for his compliments for everyone. Look, I think I agree. This is arguably the greatest comeback in the history of politics. It is unprecedented at multiple levels. And congratulations, of course, to Donald Trump and his entire team, and also the X factor, pun not intended, Elon Musk. Now, as to the question you asked, let me divide it into two parts because both of them are very important and need discussing. The first is your direct question, to which the direct answer is hubris is the middle name of all these leftists. So yes, entitlement and hubris makes them believe that they're always right, that they are the ones who make the rules and they will always win. It is not about the abuse or basket of deplorables or garbage or rubbish, othering the other, because that has been normalized to such an extent that honestly, Islamophobe, this, that, other, it's one takes it in one stride now. The one who is abused almost is, I wouldn't say the word relishing it. For example, you normalize it, like Sangi has been normalized by us. So, it's no longer an abuse. I think the fact of the matter, Rahul, is the second issue. And I think please give me a couple of minutes because that's very important, especially for us Indians. There were so many things that were wrong with Donald Trump. So many. But there was not a single thing that was right with Kamala Harris. Not a single thing. Higher taxes, runaway national debt, hounding wealth generators, unchecked mass illegal immigration, unabated stifling of free speech, labeling, cancelling, unbridled wokeism, social engineering, to name a few. And ironically, this is important, Trump managed to convince majority of Americans, the blue-collared and the working class, the Latinos, the blacks, through promises that are quite frankly straight out of the socialist cookbook, if not the communist manifesto. Protectionism, higher tariffs, duties, trade renegotiations, quotas, in short, an American license Raj Indira Gandhi would have been proud of. But this time round, Trump is even more virulently America first, more virulently anti-globalization, more virulently anti-Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And therefore, although in the short run, this will help America because through protectionism and higher tariffs and quotas, Trump will definitely create more jobs for Americans, more domestic growth and setting up of factories and lower imports. In the long run, protectionism will result in what it has always resulted in, a socialist trap that ultimately destroys a country's economy through less choice for consumers, outdated technology, increasing friction with other countries, and higher prices because of lack of competition and rule of monopoly. Remember, Ambassador cars and Campa Cola? So we need to think carefully as to how India can traverse this tricky journey for the next 4 years, Rahul, especially because finally we are seeing the face of new India. It has taken 10 years for the Modi dispensation to stand up to Western bullying and to expose the hypocrisy in Ukraine. Europe, that 2 years into the Russian invasion of Ukraine, continues to buy 13 million metric tons of coal, 43 billion cubic meters of gas, 17.5 million metric tons of oil from Russia, was lecturing India on morality and ethics. Germany continues to buy Russian fuel from Belgium and Holland. Europe is buying refined Russian fuel from Jamnagar, India. And what to say about the Americans? They were importing 9% of their crude from Russia well beyond the Ukraine invasion. Yeah. I think our resolute stand will keep us in good stead with Trump. He realizes we can no longer be bullied. Look, Rahul, just 30 seconds. US is a vital trade and security partner. Unfortunately, because of historically our foreign policy was shackled by obsolete Nehruvian thinking, we've had a cagey relationship with USA, but things are on the bend. 34% of Indian stock market assets are American investments. Indo-US trade has surged from $16 billion in 99 to $201 billion now, double even of French-US trade. NASA, ISRO are partnering heavily. Everything is coming together. Energy is just one sector. So I think the time has come for us to realize that we are, what we are going to be because of hard power. We must demand string returns from Trump whenever he negotiates hard. A Security Council seat, for example. Look, Trump has no doubt an ally in Modi. He must realize it. But America must realize more than ever.
Mr. Thanedar, those are some good points. Of course, I'm going to explore this bonhomie between Modi and Trump and whether it can advantage India with also Mr. Bolton, who's going to be joining us. He was a former national security advisor under Trump. But I want to come back to you, Mr. Thanedar. Virtue signaling is the woke default setting. Did Kamala Harris fall for it, lock, stock and barrel? And now how does the Democratic Party extricate itself from this? It's not winning you votes, sir.
I think where Democratic Party needs to work on, the lessons learned here are our messaging needs to be much sharper. Our messaging was muffled. We were all things to all people. And Trump came in and identified three key issues: the economy, the security, migrant security, and world peace. Now, it is more important now, does he make a difference? Just in 2 years, we will have midterm elections, and often the party in power loses big in midterm elections because people have come in with high expectations. And if Donald Trump cannot deliver those in the next 2 years, people would, they would lose control of the House. They would lose, seats in the state houses. So Donald Trump has only 2 years to prove and deliver, and he needs to make ordinary people's lives better. This is not about being an elite. This is about making things better. That means lowering the gasoline
But only
cost.
a strong Democratic Party led by a decisive, strong leader can hold him to account. This is also a fact. I mean, you're in danger of losing the Senate. There could be more reversals.
We have lost the Senate. We have lost the Senate.
Yes, that is right. You've lost the Senate. There could be other complications in the other house. I think he's going to have a pretty free run of it, Mr. Thanedar. Thank you very much for actually joining me this evening and being very upfront with your messaging. You've said that we need to go back. That is, the Democrats need to go back. You've certainly pulled up Ms. Harris for not doing enough. We're also going to be joined by John Bolton. We have with us Adele. We also have with us Mr. Vijay Chauthiawale, and I'm going to come to him in just a few seconds. But viewers, one of the first congratulatory messages from world leaders in Donald Trump's inbox will be from Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Prime Minister said, "Heartiest congratulations, my friend Donald Trump, on your historic election victory as you build on the successes of your previous term. I look forward to renewing our collaboration to further strengthen the India-US comprehensive global and strategic partnership. Together, let's work for the betterment of our people and to promote global peace, stability, and prosperity," unquote. Let's go straight across to John Bolton, Donald Trump's former national security advisor, to get a sense on whether India can count on Mr. Modi. Can we actually trust him? Is his worldview advantageous for India? Mr. Bolton, thank you for speaking to the hard facts tonight. Simple question. Is Trump 2.0, 4 years too late, going to be beneficial to India, or is he going to play hardball? What do you think?
It's a hard question to answer, primarily because Trump himself doesn't know at this minute. I think what would benefit Prime Minister Modi and India is that Trump believes and has said expressly that if he has good personal relationships with a foreign leader, then U.S. relations with that country are good. Now, that's a gross oversimplification, but that's how Trump sees the world. And I think he believes he and Prime Minister Modi do have a good personal relationship. So the question is, what will Trump's priorities be? Will it be to expand the role of the Asian security quad, India, Japan, Australia, and the U.S.? Or will he do as he did in the meetings I attended between the two of them, talk about trade problems between India and the United States? Trump loves to talk about trade issues. He thinks he understands them because they're dollars and cents. And that tends to dominate what one might call more important strategic issues. So if he wants to impose tariffs of 10% on imports from all around the world, which he's been saying he would do on the campaign trail, that could crash the American economy and the economy of everybody who trades with us as well. I would think Prime Minister Modi should be thinking about that. And while I think it was an excellent diplomatic step to send Trump a note, as the Prime Minister did, my free advice at this point would be to give him a call today, or to work it out at some point convenient given the time zone difference, and say, Donald, I'm so glad you're back in office. Let's get together at our earliest opportunity to chart the way ahead.
Now, Mr. Bolton, you're very right. Raising tariffs will also fuel inflation at home. That is something that Donald Trump is wary about, because that's what he actually campaigned against, high prices. So how does he balance this conundrum with the promise he has made to American voters?
Right. Well, he balances it because he doesn't understand how tariffs works. He thinks that foreign governments are paying us revenue when foreign goods come in. He doesn't realize that the actual payer may be a foreign government if it's a state-owned enterprise, but it's the company exporting into the United States that's paying the tariff, and then raising the price to the American consumer to compensate for most, if not all, of that tariff increase, so that it is a tax increase on Americans, not on the foreign exporter, and it will result in higher prices. Since he doesn't understand that connection, he thinks that higher tariffs are nothing but good things. And I've heard this over and over again. People who are quite knowledgeable about tariffs and international trade have tried to explain it to him. He simply doesn't take it in.
Now, Mr. Bolton, there's a very important issue, which is really the elephant in the room. India's relationship with Russia, with Putin. Putin, of course, and the Kremlin today haven't issued a congratulatory message for obvious reasons. So there's a point of friction, but it also could be posturing. I just want to ask you, is Trump going to press India's buttons on its connect with Russia? It could all, of course, go away if he were to resolve the Ukraine war. And he has said today in his victory speech, in fact, one of his policy decisions, he has enunciated, and he has said, look, I am the president that ends wars. I don't begin wars. We don't begin wars. We don't start wars. So is that going to happen fairly quickly?
Well, I think fairly quickly, Trump will address the conflict in Ukraine. I think it will end up very disadvantageously for Ukraine, very positively for the Russians. I would set the India-Russia relationship in a slightly different context. I understand the historical basis for it, going back decades into the Cold War. What I think India needs to do, this is a decision India is going to make, not the United States, is when you see the Russia-China axis growing more and more extensive, and you see China, which is attempting to extend its hegemonic influence all along its periphery, buying the same weapon systems, the same highly sophisticated weapon systems that India is from Russia, how secure India's defense can be when its principal adversary not only has the same weapons, but maybe the key to render your weapons ineffective. This is a very difficult question for India, but it's something I don't think can be avoided much longer. I hope the decision India makes is to grow closer to the U.S., because I think that's where India's real security lies, not just politico-military security, but economic security as well. But that's not a decision the U.S. or any president's going to make for India. That's a decision India's got to make itself.
But Mr. Bolton, finally, you've been in the room with Trump when some of the negotiations have taken place with India. especially on the Russia question, on procuring arms and, of course, of late oil in large quantities from Russia. What has Mr. Trump's approach been? He does see Mr. Modi as quite an independent mind. He's made that comment just a few weeks back. He also sees him as a strong leader who does the best for his own country. So this is, the unmovable force against the insurmountable, you know that phrase. So how does this work?
Well, I think that the Trump, one of the things Trump will do is come at India with a pretty strong pitch that to solve the energy problem, or to help solve the energy problem that India needs as its economy expands, is to buy more oil and gas from the United States. Why trouble with the Middle East? Why trouble with Russia? Why don't you buy it from us? Now, there's a cost differential, to be sure, but there may be ways to overcome that. And I think Trump is going to try and distinguish himself from Biden by dropping climate change as a priority, very close to the bottom of the list, to encourage American oil and natural gas producers to do more exporting, which is economically beneficial and strategically beneficial. So it'll be interesting to see if there's something to work on there. I think as well, Trump has been very friendly with the oil-producing countries of the Middle East, and there may be ways to arrange better terms there rather than dealing with Russia, rather than dealing with Iran.
Well, that's very interesting, because he did mention in that speech that he was talking to someone and saying that, look, we have black gold and it must flow. He's referring to, of course, American oil. If that were to happen and we would get it at a obviously discounted price, like perhaps the Russians trade with us, allowing us to keep our inflation in check, there could be, of course, an agreement. How do you see the next 1-2 years unfolding with regards to India? There have been some tensions on Khalistani issues and certain other irritants. Do you think these will go away, especially the focus of the Biden-Harris regime on democracy and human rights, alleged violations in India?
No, I think under Trump, the issue will have to be resolved, but I think it will not be as high a priority as it was for Biden, or certainly not for the Trudeau government in Canada. I think that Trump will want to focus on more on economic issues. My preference really is that both India and the U.S. Spend more time on the strategic issues, which are ultimately what determine whether economic order in the world prevails or not. And I do think we're going to face an increasingly dangerous challenge from this China-Russia axis, where, unlike the Sino-Soviet alliance of the Cold War, the Chinese are clearly the dominant partner.
Thank you, Mr. Bolton. Thank you very much for speaking with me. Let's go back to our panel viewers, because we were in the middle of a very interesting conversation there also. Adel Nazarian is there with us. Mr. Chathaiwale is also there with us. Let's weave him into this conversation now. Adel Nazarian, let me just ask you this straight off the bat. This has been a phenomenal victory for Donald Trump. It's not been a pretty victory. I've mentioned already in my introduction that, look, fundamentally, it's not as if the better candidate has won. It's a candidate that has been more upfront, even if it meant being shedding the fig leaf, so to speak, of political correctness, which is the mainstay of basic decency in politics. But at the end of the day, he won. What went wrong with the Kamala campaign? She was out of the blocks very quickly and doing very well.
Absolutely. By the way, really, really strong monologue you had there. I commend you for it. I have to say, just a quick introductory, comment here. On the heels of Deepavali is what we just went through, right? And what I can say is, what happened last night is that Ram defeated Ravana, and in the Ramayana, that he defeated the evil, and I think that's exactly what happened. I think spiritually, historically, this is what happened. And I don't mean in a literal sense, but I mean in terms of a cultural sense. Look, you had basically the Beyonce, Lady Gaga, Cardi B, who is deplorable, honestly. All these, John Legend, Oprah Winfrey, Barack Obama coming out and endorsing Kamala Harris, and it wasn't enough. What's the reason why? Because culturally, she lost the narrative. She basically was throwing everything the book at people, trying to push this agenda that is inconsistent, this trans agenda, these cultural issues that are inconsistent with the wills and the sentiments of everyday American voters who are concerned about the well-being of their children, their mental health, and it was truly defeating evil. That's what Trump came in to do, and he stopped that. And people went to the ballot box and they voted based on their conscience. They voted based on their morals and ethics. And I think morally and ethically, the economy aside, the everyday American people who voted for Trump they couldn't stomach what the Harris campaign and what the Harris camp and the Democrats were presenting to them. I think that's one of the biggest obstacles the Democrats are going to face, even in 2020, 2026, 2028, and beyond. The era of celebrity endorsements is effectively dead. And I think also she really lacked the narrative to be able to relate to everyday people. That was a major, major issue as well. When she would go off script, when she would go off the teleprompter, she wasn't able to connect in a way that she was an everyday run-of-the-mill person, speaking to a blue-collar community versus a white, collar community. Trump has the ability to transcend every single class. And Kamala Harris, sadly, for all she's accomplished in her career, just doesn't have that same capability. And it's a personality difference. That's all it is. Okay. And I think that the economy really also did a very, very bang-up job in terms of not helping her win at the polls. She, is a continuation of President Biden's, economy. And at the end of the day, I will say this. Trump has been able to consistently, he showed it the first time, say what he's going to do and deliver. Kamala Harris was never able to, unfortunately, deliver a solid.
Okay, let's put that to Mr. Roma and Mr. Chothaiwale now. Mr. Roma, it seems what Adel Nazarian is trying to say is that Trump has slain the evil of licentiousness, dissolution, immorality, a kind of progressivism that is out of whack with everyday American voters. How do you respond to this?
Well, just as I think that sometimes Democrats, if they talk about the basket of deplorables or fascists or, people cling to their guns and religion, those are not helpful comments in our American politics today, nor is it people using terms like, good versus evil, and one side is holy and all about good stuff, and the other side somehow is evil and not good. I think America needs to come back together. Look, I'm a Democrat. I'm not happy with the results of Trump winning, but I congratulate him. I hope he'll work with our party across the aisle to get bipartisan immigration reform done. I hope he'll work with Mr. Modi and the people of India to strengthen our strategic ties and our common interests around the world for peace and prosperity.
Okay.
We don't, as Americans, need to be exporting this language to India and other places about, good versus evil. And
well, we could teach you a few phrases that you could throw about in America. We've got quite good at it here, and that's why I want to bring in.
You have gotten very good at it. You're getting better than us in some ways.
So I don't think
we need to control that.
This is an export that you might actually benefit from. But it's on that point. It's on that point that I want to bring in Mr. Chothaiwale, because words like Sanghi, Musangi that have been used to characterize, Hitler, cockroach, fascist, all sorts of things to characterize Mr. Modi, etc., bandied about here. The BJP today is drawing a degree of vindication from this result. What's making you so happy? Why is it that you're seeing a degree of vindication from the American voter? What's the connect?
Rahul, thanks for inviting me. Before I go to your answer your question, I want to make one comment, and that the Kamala Harris was neither a choice of Democrats, nor she is capable of running a campaign, nor she was prepared. And it's not me that I am saying this. The very famous liberal columnist Janan Ganesh, in just few minutes ago, wrote in Financial Times that the Kamala Harris was defeated the day Biden chose her as a vice presidential candidate in 2020, and which essentially shows that Kamala Harris was not even capable or qualified to be his running mate in 2020. So with this baggage, it was a conspiracy of Barack Obama and few other intellectuals in democratic setup to suddenly elevate the image of Kamala Harris, so that she is the greatest strategist, she is the most compassionate lady, and she will solve all the problems of US. And what she has done and her campaign has done, what you have correctly said, that she has not done anything to project her own vision for the America. She could neither dissociate with the mistakes of Biden campaign, nor she could say what new things she would do which would be different from Biden. So in a very inevitable situation she was in, and with her very deep communication, lack of communication without a teleprompter has also did not help her. Now with this background, if you see, I would like to give you two analogies. One is the analogy between senior Bush campaign versus Bill Clinton. Senior Bush campaign was high on the victory in Kuwait, Iraq-Kuwait essentially war, and he thought that he would win based on that war. And at the same time, Bill Clinton's campaign manager, Jim Carville, has created a very famous quote which used to be on his backdrop all the time, that is, "It's economy stupid." And Bill Clinton's campaign focused on economy, while Bush campaign did everything to take a credit of victory in the Middle East, in the Gulf. Same mistake these people have done, that they have one side created a vilifying Trump by making it fascist and whatnot, all sorts of galleys, without telling what is the core issue that is facing. For example, take issue of abortion. Now, even among the women, abortion is ranked as the fourth issue, with only a 12-13% people, women are saying that this is the top priority issue which will decide the votes. Everyone.
No, but today the BJP, sir, has come out and said that this is a defeat for the kind of politics that is practiced here by your opponents, this fear-mongering, etc., etc. Why do you see parallels?
I am coming to that.
Right.
I am coming to that. This is precisely the strategy what our opponents, Rahul Gandhi and company, try to did it for Modi, not only for last 10, 11 years, but since he became the chief minister. That he is X, Y, Z, all sorts of choicest terms were used against him. And at the same time, he focused on development, he focused on development for everyone, irrespective of caste, creed, religion, bring the transparency into the system, and try to improve the life of the most downtrodden of the country. So he was focused, Bill Clinton was focused, and while most of the liberals who were ultra left, they were picking the trivial issues and trying to make the ideological battle. And that is the parallel between the Kamala Harris campaign, the campaign vis-a-vis
fakery doesn't work anymore. You can try and paper it over with endorsement after endorsement. It's not going to cut ice with the voter. That's fundamentally what the BJP is saying. That's the one lesson that they've taken from this, and they're trying to now sort of extrapolate and put it in an Indian context. Thank you. Thank you all for joining me this evening.